It's pretty obvious that MMA fighters are downright intimidating. I mean, think about it. These are individuals who dedicate themselves to intense training day in and day out, mastering the art of inflicting serious harm using nothing but their own bodies. They've turned themselves into lethal weapons, finely tuned and ready to go. But within the ranks of these formidable fighters, there are some who take intimidation to a whole new level. They go beyond what you'd expect and exude an aura of sheer physicality and unwavering determination that makes you believe they're unstoppable. We're talking about the kind of fighters who give you nightmares and make you wake up in a cold sweat in the dead of night. So let's get to it. Today we're going to count down the 10 most intimidating fighters in the history of MMA. Brace yourself. Starting off our list at number 10, Quentin Rampage Jackson. Meet the American former UFC light heavyweight champion, a true pioneer who helped skyrocket the sport's popularity across the globe. He's earned a well-deserved spot amongst the 10 most intimidating MMA fighters ever, thanks to his aggressive fighting style that leaves opponents trembling. But that's not all. This guy's got a flair for the eccentric. Just picture him with a massive chain around his neck, giving off an aura of pure savagery. And those eyes, they could pierce through steel. His reign of destruction wasn't limited to just Pride FC in Japan. Nope, he took his talents to the UFC as well, where he pulled off a jaw-dropping feat. He knocked out the reigning champion, Chuck Liddell, with one of his trademark looping hooks. Talk about leaving a lasting impression. What sets him apart is his unique blend of wrestling and street fighting skills. It's a lethal combination that makes him a force to be reckoned with inside the octagon. He's earned his spot as one of the most intimidating MMA fighters ever, and he's not planning on relinquishing that title anytime soon. Chuck the Iceman Liddell. Now let's talk about Chuck Liddell, a guy who's got that perfect mix of being someone you'd want to hang out and watch football with, but also someone you'd definitely avoid in a dark alley. He's got that unmistakable cage fighter vibe, especially during the era when barbed wire and skulls ruled the sport. Just look at him, rocking a badass mohawk. He's got this tough athlete meets barroom brawler aura. Chuck doesn't rely on fancy stances. He sticks to his wrestling skills to keep the fight standing, giving him the chance to rain down a flurry of brutal punches to your face. But here's the real deal. Chuck Liddell is absolutely terrifying when it comes to finishing fights. From 2004 to 2006, he went on an epic rampage, knocking out or TKOing every single opponent he faced, stacking up an impressive streak of 7 consecutive finishes. It felt like he had a grip on you that you couldn't escape. When Chuck was in his prime, he represented pure, unadulterated pain. If you had the misfortune of stepping into the cage against him during that era, you were in for a world of hurt. And believe me, the intimidation was palpable long before the fight even began. But hold on tight because our list doesn't end there. Up next we have Yoel Romero. Let's talk about this Cuban MMA fighter who's still tearing it up in the light heavyweight category of Bellator MMA. This guy's a former freestyle wrestler, and he's no stranger to the big stage. He's even challenged the UFC middleweight championship not once, not twice, but 4 times. Now, despite not clinching that elusive UFC title, this fighter's got a resume that speaks volumes. With his impressive background in Olympic wrestling and a string of memorable performances in the UFC, he's often mentioned in the same breath as the all-time greats of MMA. What sets him apart is his downright vicious explosiveness and power. The man is an athletic marvel, and he's got wins over some seriously talented former world champions. It's no wonder he's earned the reputation as the most avoided fighter in the UFC. I mean, if you've witnessed how he miraculously drags his opponents to the ground or knocks them out with lightning-fast dynamism, you'd understand why. Mirko Cro Cop. Next on the list is Mirko Cro Cop. This Croatian MMA fighter is a total beast, and we've got him at the tippy top of our list of the 10 most intimidating MMA fighters ever. He's done it all, fighting in just about every big-name MMA and kickboxing promotion out there. What sets this guy apart is his absolutely brutal fighting style and his insane stopping power. Seriously, it's like he's got dynamite in his fists. And the move he's most famous for? It's so deadly they call it right leg hospital, left leg cemetery. Yeah, that's right. His signature kick has the power to knock out even the toughest fighters in the blink of an eye. The guy has a staggering 71 wins by knockout. Quentin Rampage Jackson. Fighters are all athletes, but not everyone can unleash destruction like Rampage Jackson in his prime. There's one moment that truly captured his power, when he slammed Ricardo Arona at Pride Critical Countdown 2004, knocking him out cold. It was a move that shouldn't be possible, but Rampage made it look as effortless as a pro wrestling powerbomb. During his prime in Pride, Rampage embodied violence. Outside the ring, he was a fun and lighthearted guy, but once he stepped into that cage, a switch flipped. His face turned mean and his howl sent shivers down your spine. If he landed a solid hit, you were going to sleep, and he knew it, as did his opponents. He demolished the beloved Chuck Liddell in just one round at UFC 71, ending Chuck's incredible run as the light heavyweight champion. His opponents always knew what they were up against, with many refusing to engage him in the boxing range. Even now, in his 40s, it's hard to find anyone willing to step into the ring and trade blows with Rampage. They say power is the last thing to go in a fighter, so as long as Rampage continues to fight, he'll remain intimidating to his opponents. Anthony Rumble Johnson. Anthony Johnson is like a character from Dragon Ball Z. Each new version of him seems to be scarier than the last. And believe it or not, this intimidating force used to fight at welterweight, making a jaw-dropping 170 pounds. But the most terrifying iteration of Rumble Johnson undoubtedly came when he moved up to light heavyweight. After being cut from the UFC, Johnson made his debut at 205 pounds, and that's when the real havoc began. He won 10 fights in the division, with his only loss coming against champion Daniel Cormier. When he returned to the organization, he racked up an impressive 9 knockout or TKO finishes, some of which were downright brutal. Just ask poor Glover Teixeira, who fell victim to Rumble's destructive power. Even in his loss to Cormier, Johnson's reputation as a powerhouse was on full display, sending the champion flying through the air like a character in a cartoon. Sure, there have been other formidable strikers in the light heavyweight division, but when it comes to raw, bone-crushing power, Rumble Johnson reigns supreme. Fedor Emelianenko. This guy had it all. Dynamic striking, top-notch Russian sambo skills, and the ability to take down even the best American wrestlers and Brazilian jiu-jitsu players in the game. Talk about potent. His agile moves and influential striking made him a force to be reckoned with. Opponents struggled to handle his dominance on the ground, often finding themselves forced back to their feet. It's no wonder he's regarded as one of the 10 most intimidating MMA fighters of all time. Considered an icon of the 21st century, he showcased his dominance by defeating fighters from every corner of the octagon during his prime. Just think about it. Victories over big names like Mark Coleman, twice, Kevin Randleman, Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, twice, Mirko Krokop, and Mark Hunt. Those are no small achievements. Anderson the Spider Silva. Let me introduce you to the enigma known as Anderson Silva. This guy is a true anomaly in the world of MMA. Just by looking at him, you'd never guess that he's one of the most feared fighters in history. He's such a pleasant guy, always cracking jokes, smiling, and even busting out some dance moves. Physically, he's not the scariest looking dude either. He's just a regular guy who hits the gym regularly. If you didn't know any better, you'd never think of him as intimidating. But hold on a second. We've all witnessed Anderson Silva in action, and that's where the magic happens. This guy is simply on another level. He's better than anyone else in the octagon. And guess what? He's not afraid to let you know it. Throughout his reign as the greatest middleweight champion of all time, we've seen Anderson toy with his opponents. It's like he's playing a video game on God mode while the rest of them struggle to keep up. When Anderson Silva decided to unleash his full potential, it was a sight to behold. He could switch from clowning around and humiliating his opponents to brutally knocking them out in a matter of seconds. Anderson Silva had the power to embarrass you, destroy you, and make it all look effortless. If that's not intimidating, I don't know what is. So buckle up, because we've got more thrilling fighters on our list. And coming in at number 1, it's none other than Wanderlei, the Axe Murderer, Silva. Now I get it, for those who hopped on the MMA bandwagon during the rise of McGregor and Rousey, the idea of Silva being scary might sound a bit silly. The usually cheerful Brazilian hasn't had the best record since those two big stars stole the spotlight, and his recent fights in Bellator weren't exactly prime-time material. But let's hold on a second. Let's rewind the clock back to the early 2000s when Silva was an absolute terror in Pride FC. Back then, there was no force in the world of mixed martial arts more bone-chilling than the legendary Axe Murderer himself. His dominance in the ring was only part of what made him so dang intimidating. His fighting style is downright brutal. He unleashed heavy strikes and relentless blitzes that left his opponents reeling. And get this, a whopping 80% of his 35 career wins came by way of a finish. The man fought like a cornered animal, and he carried that ferocity with him even outside the cage when confronted before fights. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button and hit subscribe. We've got a ton of exciting content coming your way, so stay tuned. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the video, so drop a comment down below and let us know what you think. We appreciate your feedback, and it helps us bring you more awesome content.